Have you checked the children? Your little match
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Horror Show. Marcia Parker.
Jaime Fuego here, and this is not a patron request, but it does tie in directly with a few that we had. I'm pretty sure it was from Heather Riley. I apologize if that was not the case, but yes, this is coverage of the original Lost Boys film after already doing The Tribe and The Thirst, which, if I'm not mistaken, were the second and the third sequels that came a long-ass time later. Like, we're talking a couple decades later, they decided to make these sequels. There's also been a few comic installments here and there that we're going to be reviewing as well. There is Reign of Frogs, and then there was also a Vertigo comic, but we're talking about the fangers that started it all today, Joel Schumacher's original. I can't believe you hadn't seen this movie until just recently, because this is one of those
first watch.
This is one of those 80s vampire classics, just 80s classics in particular, especially because so many of these actors, you know, most notably like Kiefer Sutherland and Jason Patric, this was like the first movie ever for these peeps before they went on to achieve tons of fame afterwards. This was even before Homie did Bill and Ted, you know, so yeah, he's all dreadlocked out and vamping it up. So this is a film I love. The score is great. It's a little more style over substance at times. I mean, the great costuming, the, you know, California setting and everything like that. And it's, despite an R rating, it's not that violent, you know?
Really isn't. A lot of the kills happen off screen.
There's no F words in the entire movie either. So it makes me kind of think that they were hoping to ride that hard PG-13 sort of thing that movies like The Monster Squad and a number of others were doing at the time. And I mean, perhaps the blood drinking in those couple kills was what pushed it over the edge. But I do think that in this late 80s era where horror was so popular, and if they deliberately did not write a bunch of F-bombs into the script, they were not trying for an R rating, and maybe that just happened anyway. But I love this movie. It's right there with Near Dark as my two favorites. Near Dark and Fright Night are, like, along with this one, the holy trinity of the 80s vampire movies. But what was your first watch like, especially compared to the other two weird sequels that have their merits here and there?
It was good. I was excited to finally watch it, especially watching the sequels first. I did in weird order.
Bass backwards.
No, sorry. But it was interesting because I saw a lot of the, you know, I knew what happened in the other two movies, so I was kind of piecing together kind of like the Frog Brothers.
Because you do have the flashbacks in that third one you and I reviewed previously, so you'd seen a little bit of that.
Yep, and then, you know, the second movie, the direct sequel to it, was just basically the same storyline, but, you know, brother and sister instead of two brothers. So
and surfers for whatever reason.
And surfers instead of dirt bikes.
Chugging Mountain Dew with some blood. Anyway.
But it was fun to watch. It was fun to see Kiefer Sutherland. And it was fun to see, you know, Ted being he's Ted, being Ted. I don't know, and it wasn't like I wasn't like over the moon, but I can see why people are over the moon about this. I can see why it is a cult classic, because it does have all of the elements. I think if I would have watched it at a, you know, younger age, I probably would have been more excited about it than like overall. But I thought it was good. I think I enjoy Fright Night better than The Lost Boys, to be honest.
And you saw Fright Night when you were younger, though, right? Like
nope.
You saw that one.
I saw that when I was older, yeah. So, I don't know. I thought it was really good. I'm glad I watched it finally, and I can, you know, talk to it. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's well directed, though. Joel Schumacher, you know, everybody hates so much on him for those two Batman movies, but just about everything else he did, you know, from A Time to Kill to Falling Down with Michael Douglas, this movie, I mean, he did a lot of really stellar stuff, and you know, just to round out overall impressions, costuming, soundtrack, iconic moments like the beefy saxophone guy all you know, baby oiled up and stuff like that. Joel was a very proud gay man, and I feel like that definitely comes out a bit in this movie, and it's charming. It really genuinely is. But Yeah, so basically, story in a nutshell is you have these two brothers, you have Corey Haim and you have Jason Patrick. They move with their mother back from Arizona, ironically enough, which is funny, to California, and they're living with Grandpa, and they are just immediately taken with this goth, like, punk rock culture, so the mix with a little bit of surf culture, a tiny bit, because, you're in this, beach town, so to speak, but, the nightlife is on the boardwalk. There's, people at, on the carousel at this, like, kind of circusy, the state fair type area. There's these large, like, bonfire parties with music and all this stuff. So, I mean, watching it as a kid, I was like, shit, man, that's the kind of stuff I want to go frolic in. And I want to be one of these awesome looking guys wearing leather and, just, like, riding motorcycles around and just being all crazy and, worshiping Jim Morrison in your weird underground, like sea cave sort of area. So I really looked up to these dudes, their attitude, their style, and so it's about the extent of it, because the older brother, new to the town, he falls in love with one of the girls who was running with this crowd, and it has its own vampire mythology in the fact that, you can be bit, but until you feed yourself, that's when you fully turn. And so Michael is, he ingests some vampy blood, and then it's not until he makes his first kill, but he's like a half vampire, and it just kind of goes through the situation there. His little brother trying to figure out exactly what's wrong with his brother, teams up with said Frog Broskies, whose parents run this comic book store. So, I mean, for a nerdy kid like me, late 80s, early 90s, first discovering this, I think it was late, actually, no, I was like maybe 9 or 10 when I first watched this, so it would have been the 90s by that time. But, yeah, man, it was like everything that I wanted as far as, kids teaming up to go against these big, evil forces. I still prefer Monster Squad so much more to this movie, but I like Fangers, man, so it's cool, and it doesn't take itself super seriously as far as story goes. There is some tongue-in-cheek, kind of nod and wink sort of stuff to the story. But, I mean, did this story, having seen those other two later sequels, did it bring enough originality for you?
I think it did, yeah. Like, I kind of wish I would have watched it in order, but as we all do. But I thought it was cool because I kind of put myself in that era when I was watching it. I've watched a lot of 80 movies and that time frame, and I'm surprised this one fell through the cracks like it had. But it really just, even now, like, yeah, it's dated, but you can still get behind it, like the music and the cinematography and the set design and just kind of like the people and the crowds and the energy, it's all there. So it all makes sense that this is a cult classic for sure. And it still holds up, I feel, even though it is dated.
It's a time capsule for sure.
It's a time capsule, yeah. It's like watching the Goonies. You're like, oh, it brings me back. And so I thought it was well done and definitely well acted.
Yeah. But was there a particular performance from the young or the older members of the cast that stuck out to you most?
So to be honest, I was expecting like Keith Sutherland to be like, wow, me, but he was really just whatever.
He's a little more playful than you might think as far as a vampire, like a head vampire goes.
Yeah, he was okay, but really the older brother was kind of blew me out of the water.
Jason Patrick, he's really good at it, man, and he's got this like handsome aesthetic with the sunglasses, the hair and stuff.
And then when he got that earring,
yeah, exactly. And Star is just like, no, you're not going to pay this guy on the boardwalk to do it. I can pierce your ear, Michael. Come on. I love the kids though. Corey Haim, rest peacefully, and Feldman, and then the other brother. The three of them, when like they're teaming up, and they're showing the comics and stuff like that, and they're like vampires and so on. Just Corey Feldman's voice in this, and he tries to recreate it in those two sequels, but
kills me.
It's even funnier as a kid in some ways though, because he's trying to sound older and tougher than he actually is. But I mean, where they're mashing up the garlic in the bathtub, and I mean, there's so many just amusing scenes, as far as the acting and stuff goes. Mom is actually she's like the cool mom.
Yeah,
in
she's
some
from
ways.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, work at the video store, and so on and so. Like, actually not coming down on her two boys, but just trying to understand them, as opposed to being like, just kind of mean, overbearing mother. She just is trying to relate to them, which I totally respect. Grandpa's funny in this too,
Oh yeah, he's killing me with all of those
those root beers he's drinking the whole damn time.
and the taxidermy, and just like,
Yeah.
why does he keep bringing me these stuff? You see, open up the closet, and it's just full of dead animals.
Yeah.
And just like, oh my god.
And he does have that hilarious line that ends the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're all just
without all the goddamn, without all the goddamn vampires. So funny.
Yeah, and it was just looking like, really?
They just
You
wait,
couldn't-
what?
Couldn't have told me. It's like, and there was a moment in there, when you saw Grandpa looking at Max, and I was like, he knows something.
Mhm.
Like, he's with it. He understands what's going on.
Mhm.
And then you see him sharpening the wood, the fence and all this stuff, and I'm like, he
Yeah.
knows what's going on.
If you've lived in the community as long as he has, you best believe you're gonna at least get a taste of that flavor to some particular
You know
degree.
what's happening. You're not blind to it. So
Yeah. So effects. I mean, with the fact that there isn't a lot of really brutal kills or anything, do you think the transformation because you don't even see vampires in this movie till an hour into it. You don't see them actually change their forms or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a Buffy sort of thing where the forehead is enlarged a little bit and you've got the fangs, but we're not talking from dusk till dawn or
No.
crazy full-on transformation sort of thing. But I thought it looked good.
I thought it fit the movie for sure. It did, like you said, it wasn't super crazy, but it didn't need to be. I think it was the right tone.
Yeah.
It was the right tone for this movie, and especially if they were trying to go PG-13 as you suspect,
Mhm.
they wouldn't want to go any further than what they did.
And it's really even the first kills we see, and with Alex and Kiefer and the rest of the guys on the beach, you still don't see a lot of gore or craziness. It's really the final battle in Grandpa's home at the end where peeps are getting impaled on things, or the deer antlers or whatever the heck it was, and there's also the water from the bathtub, and so there's a little bit of nastiness at the very end, but the fact that it takes so long to get there and it's only it doesn't linger on that gore or that goopiness or anything like that. So maybe with just a little bit more trimming, they could have got that easier rating. But I don't know. It's a very well shot film. Back to Schumacher. I love the costuming of just these lost boys. It's obviously a Peter Pan reference. The boys that don't want to grow up, and so they're just vampires in this regard. And just the whole mixture of the goth and the punk rock, and that aqua in the hair and all that shit. It's just cool.
The mullets.
Yes, very much so. Rocking it.
Just sea of mullets everywhere you could look.
Yeah, it was of the vein at the time, and fake piercings and all that different stuff. Really, music for me, the soundtrack to this for a lot of people, whether it's the cover of The Doors' People Are Strange that's used in the movie, and there is that big picture of Morrison in their little Seacoast layer that I mentioned, and then obviously Cry Little Sister is an iconic song. It's used throughout it's the theme of the movie. You get it in the intro, you get the full version of it later on as we proceed through. We got to see that live at Texas Frightmare a couple years ago, and it's so great, man. I love that song. It's an icon as far as just horror in general, not just the 80s, I think.
Yeah, no, I thought the music played really well. It really carried the movie in an aspect, I think, because it just kind of brought the rest of that flavor that you needed for it to make it that cult classic movie. And that iconic song is something that it
You had heard the song before, probably, right?
Well, I heard the song in the sequel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's right. They did re-record it, and it was a more metal-y kind of version of it.
Yeah.
It's been covered by a lot of different bands.
This one was way better, and it was just it was
OG.
kind of fun. Every time it would come on, I'm like, okay, and kind of singing it on my way here too. So.
Yeah. I will admit on this, as we close things out here, on the most recent rewatch of this that I did, and it had been a few years, I feel like since the story is a little bit thinner at times, that with the excessive use of music, it does almost feel like a big long music video at times.
There is
with
times,
some of the chase sequences on the motorcycles, and then with
the rock concert.
Yeah, the rock concert too, man. And with a homie with that big old Big old sacks and them muscles, man.
Man, I was just having fun, like, people watching in that scene, like, just watching all the different, like,
it's
costumes
so
and the
entertaining,
dancing,
man.
and
Yeah.
it's just like, this is great.
Yeah, this is it warrants the term classic, even if maybe it does have that burden of expectation for people who didn't see it back when it first came out, and everybody builds it up so goddamn much, myself and Cecil Laird included, maybe to Marcia. The burden of expectation, just a little bit, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad I watched it. It wasn't a letdown by any means of the word. Like, no, I had a lot of fun, but I think I would be on the level you guys were if I watched it way back when, instead of like waiting till now and after watching 2 sequels of it.
Yeah.
I think, but I still it's in that realm. Like, and like I said, it's obvious why it's a cult classic. I appreciate the film. I may not be over the moon about it, but it was still pretty cool. I'm glad I got it. I watched.
Yeah, and so you guys should have already been able to see our coverage of the second and the third film, and I believe this week we are also releasing the aforementioned thoughts about the Vertigo comic and the Reign of Frogs comic that I think Wildstorm did, if I'm not mistaken. So check that stuff out if you want to see the full extended, expanded universe of Lost Boys.
That's
but
right.
yeah, man, thanks so very much. A grande gracias, as I like to say. If you want to be a patron, all of that info is in the description below. So yeah, Marcia, I'm glad we got to talk about this one. Twas fun.
Too.
Hell yeah. So until next time, Fright fans, I've been Jaime Fuego.
And I'm Marcia Parker.
And until next time, remember, stay scared.